And today we will talk about corner enclosures and how to harass them, how to harass the corners. When we have a single stone in a corner, we would not really attach to it. We would approach it a bit from distance. It's very common when we see a move on the fourth line that we play a move on the third line, which is a knight's move, because it threatens that we slide, and it is also possible for white to jump, and it is very universal. It can happen anywhere on the board, and also in the corner. Playing on the third line, a knight's move to the stone on the fourth line. And we would not really attach. If we attach, then we only strengthen the opponent a lot. If we attach here, black will secure the corner and be happy with how many points black gets and how much strength black gets. Actually, maybe some of you saw that attachment, but it's a move for special situations, like if a position is a bit unusual, then sometimes such an attachment is used. I remember seeing a professional game with this shape. White had a stone, and there was a bit of white's moyo on the left side, and white wanted to approach this stone, and then white decided that it's possible to play a Sansan invasion, but then actually white has two walls facing each other, and it's not over-concentrated. They are far from each other, so it's a very nice moyo for black. And then white also considered playing this move, but then thought that black would attach, get a big corner, and white doesn't have much space here. And then they chose this attachment. So this attachment can be chosen sometimes. If black goes from the corner, which is usually the best move, then white gets a bit more space than in this position. So maybe sometimes it's useful to play the attachment, but a bit uncommon. But when there are already two stones at the corner, let's say this corner enclosure, and we want to approach it, then it is not really interesting to approach it not by attachment. Let's say playing this move. Black doesn't need to respond. Black already has this corner secure, stones on the third line, a lot of points. Usually in a Joseki, white would manage to play from that side and then still have some access to the corner. And like this, the access to the corner is already blocked. So it's not interesting to approach it from far. And what is often used against a corner enclosure is actually an attachment. So play a move like this. Let's say black answers, black just secures the corner. Then, well, just by itself it would be a very, very bad exchange. But now this stone is not really well placed. So white can accept such a result. And one thing to remember when you attach and your opponent answers is that you don't need to be too emotionally attached to such a stone. You don't need to now think how to save it, maybe play like this or like that. You can play freely far away, and even if your opponent manages to capture it at one point, you can think of it like there is no that exchange on the board. The exchange doesn't change that much. Perhaps if the opponent answers in a more, puts more pressure on the stone, plays Hane instead of extension, then you wouldn't just leave it behind, because then black gets a really good shape. But like this, it's not that interesting for black. So maybe after Hane you would answer, push, and all right. And then you have 2 stones. So from 2 stones, extend free space. This is a Joseki. That's the basic stuff. I think we will start from start point. Let's just put a possible generic opening of the board, and we will discuss a little bit how corner enclosures made from a start point can be attacked. Move. Black plays here, and let's say now white looks at that big framework of black in the top right and thinks now is the time for me to approach somehow that area. What moves would you think of?
18-4.
18-4. This one.
Yeah.
Yes, nice one. Any other?
18-5.
18-5. All right. These moves are quite similar. We will discuss it. Yes.
17-6.
17-6. Yes. A usual corner approach. Yes.
74.
17-4. This one. Attachment. All right. Good. We have 4 proposed moves. Any more? Since this is a start point and not a 3-4, it is possible to just approach it with a simple move on the 3rd line, because still we threaten that we go into the corner, and this is one of good moves in this position. With Shimari made from 3-4, we cannot really play such a move. It's not interesting. Okay, so if we play a move like this, then it looks similar to a Joseki, right? We play here, black plays here. Okay, then we play elsewhere. It's black's turn. Maybe black will kick and try to attack our group, and then our job will be to run. And it's completely alright. So that was a good proposition. Now we will cover a little bit this move. Already now, I need to say that this move is not often used anymore. This used to be a very popular move, but nowadays it's really situational. How should black respond?
3-3.
3-3, Then white will extend. Where will black play? Descend. White can turn. Black will answer, and then white has quite some space to make a group. We can compare it with that shape which we covered in the very beginning of the lesson. If there is a single stone in the corner and white attaches, then what black wants to do is take the corner. The corner is quite big. White can push and extend, but in this case, black has an additional stone. And this stone is not well located here. Black is anyway very strong. Black really doesn't need another stone. So maybe that variation is a bit better for black. But if there is such an inefficient stone, it's already better for white. So the lesson is, don't play from the corner. Playing from the corner is happy for white. White wants such a result. And it's also similar like to that variation, right? That white attached, black played here, and that stone was inefficient. But probably now the inefficiency is even more striking, because like the group is really safe. It has a lot of points, and this is not a good place. Okay, so if we shouldn't answer from the corner, the only other option is answer with the outside hand. How can white continue?
16-3.
16-3. All right. And then what can black do? If black doesn't react, white can go through here, so black can just cover. And then
18-3.
18-3. Yes, this is a classical variation which we all learned years ago, white can make life like this. And if you learn that variation, it's good that you know it, but don't play it. It's almost never good for white. It might be good for white in case that black's influence is completely not useful. Like there is some white stones here, alive groups, and then black's influence does nothing. Then maybe you can just make life in the corner. It's very safe, very nice shape. But in fact, it's not too efficient. In the future, this will be black's center, threatening that black kills white's corner in core. So white ends up with around 7 points. Black has walls on both sides. I said yesterday that in the opening we have the religion, which is like the variations which we know how to judge, and then tewari, which is changing the order of moves and comparing a variation which we don't know with a variation which we know how to judge. And I didn't come up with any very convincing tewari for this one, but I think it might be a bit similar to a Sansan invasion, after which white goes, black plays the schema, and white, instead of bumping and playing here, or just playing here, white just plays this one and decides to live very small. Like this also, white has around 7 points in the corner, maybe here just 6, and white is blocked from both sides. And this is not what we want to achieve when we enter the opponent's corner. It's too small. This life is too small. Gote. Yeah. So what are the other options? What can white do instead of playing that move?
Yeah, honey, 18.
This Hane, right? Okay, this is a possibility. Black is in pieces, white is also in pieces, both in trouble. This is a shape which we can achieve also in another order. If white, instead of playing that attachment, plays this move, and then plays the wedge, black should cut, and we get into the same shape. And that is a joseki, leading to an even result. But in fact, black has a better move here. Black can push white towards the second line. Atari.
Extend.
And extend, yes. So there are cutting points in black's shape, but thanks to the proximity of this stone, white cannot use it. White cannot cut because white stone is captured in ladder. If the stone was further, then yes, then the cut would be very scary for black. But now it's not. So white is on the second line, and white needs to struggle to make life. What white can do is push once more, and now white has a tesuji actually to get a bit up, not just on the second line. So instead of playing another push, white can play a clamp. Black can try to fight against it, but it will be a very complicated variation. And black doesn't need it. Black can just play here, here. White answers. So what do you think of this variation? Who is good here? So this is also one of standard variations which I learned, but which is also not really in use these days, because in general this attachment is not often used. And maybe it would be useful if we can compare it with something we know. Because like this we can say black has a wall, white is on the second line, so maybe white doesn't have enough territory. But it is more convincing if we can compare it with a variation we know. One thing to really keep in mind when you try to compare one variation with the other is that the number of moves of each color should match. As many more moves from the other player as in this variation.
Can you compare it to the Sun invasion?
Yes! So, do you want to show?
So maybe you can move this here
Yes.
and put that there
Yes.
and end up with these.
And this one stone is here, and you are left with one white stone, one black stone. So it's a good comparison. This is a Sansan invasion, a very common shape. Probably this would be a very normal variation here, because black had stones on both sides and then white invaded Sansan. Perhaps you know that these days it's not recommended to play this Hane, but actually if black is already strong on both sides, then the Hane is fine. So this would be more or less an even result. But in the variation which we look at, white is pushed a bit towards the side. So white has, I don't know, maybe 3 points less than in that variation. So 3 points is quite much. It's not something which we could neglect.
Yeah, but for 3-3 invasion, black wouldn't choose this direction normally.
I don't know, like here both directions are similar. Like on both directions we have a stone, so yeah, maybe there is a little difference on this particular board. Maybe black would prefer the other direction, but this direction is also fine. So this variation is a little bit worse for white. So I think we covered the most important variations. This one and this one were the old Josekis, but nowadays they're not really in use. Maybe white could also try to think of other moves like cut. And then what happens? Well, this stone is likely to die, but it creates some trouble. So maybe white can get something out of it. But in general, yeah, rather don't use an attachment. So later we will talk about 3-4, right? And about 3-4 Shimaris, and I will talk about all types of attachments. But against this Shimari, usually you don't use an attachment. We had two more propositions, this move and that move. And we need to explore how they look. After this move, Sansan is a bit slow. It's possible to take more points if you play this move. And it's as safe as Sansan. So Sansan not only takes less points, but also it gives white some space to maybe create an eye. So rather choose this one. This is the easiest variation. White doesn't have much to look for in the corner, so white can just play on the side. What will black do? Maybe black doesn't want white to make a base here, so black might block. White can push once, but then corner is blocked. White can also consider jumping into the corner, but perhaps white is too thin to do it. I don't know. Black will just cover. So what white can do now is just jump out, simple, or play here. Black might be scared that white goes into the corner, and then we jump out. Maybe we can also compare it with something, just for the sake of comparing. This is a very good skill.
This looks like a typical white position in a high handicap stone.
Yeah, so like we could theoretically get this position if we play this move, and instead of playing a kick, black just plays a solid move. White goes here, and then this exchange. Normal position. Alright, so this is what can happen after this move, and black's iron pillar. And another possibilities are attachments. Black can kick from above. Then what should white do? Go into the corner, and black can enclose white, and white will live there. This is possible. Or
Attach on 16-3?
maybe better. Yes. This leads to more complication. If black answers peacefully, then all right, then white corner is a bit bigger, so then perhaps you are happy that you played that one instead of this, even though it's a small difference. Here also you can make your corner bigger with a Keima, but there is a possibility that your opponent starts a fight. And then what to do?
You have to push and cut.
Cut.
You have to cut, yeah.
You can cut, Black will capture the stone, and white will go out on the other side. White has some like half an eye here, half an eye there. This is also a joseki. This is a possibility. But probably the most common move in this position is this attachment. What are white's possible continuations?
Extend up.
Extend up, aha.
Or cut depending on the pincer.
Alright, so I remember that 10 years ago this move was popular. But in fact, this move is quite bad. It is similar to that shape which we looked at, but the stone is sticking to black's wall. It means that white's shape here is more fragile, more weak. It's better if it was here. This is not a good move. It's not played anymore. White is too thin here. So what white does is this wedge. And then, where should black answer?
Cut from outside.
Cut, yes. If black doesn't cut and just protects the corner, we will manage to judge this position very easily. Let's say white pushes, and then it's something we talked about before, right? We talked about this position before. If white attaches, black plays hane, white extends, black goes down, white plays push, black extends. And we said that this is good for white. Here we have two more stones, which is probably also an exchange good for white, because it strengthens white's group. So black really doesn't want to get into that position. Black needs to cut. And then we get into a bit complicated variation. Let's just take a look at it. White extends. If now black captures the stone, white will destroy black's shape. So black pushes. This is the strongest move. White has trouble living locally. Maybe it's possible to live locally, but even if it's possible, it's not good, because black gets too much on the outside. So white decides to not live locally. Instead, white plays two moves there, and then doesn't play here, plays on the outside. Now black is really scared. If black plays here, then white gets too much, so black needs to play another stone in the corner. White plays Atari, black extends, and now white can, for example, push twice more. This is one possibility of white. Push once, push another time, and alright, black got a very big corner, but white built a group, and this group won't have much trouble with making life. So this is a joseki. And another thing is that in this shape, white has more possibilities. What else could white think of? Kosumi. Alright, if white plays Kosumi and black doesn't react, white will squeeze black, and this will be terrible for black. This shape is so ugly. So what black should do after white's Kosumi is extend, or maybe play this. Is it better than pushing twice? I think comparable. Difficult to say which is better. Other options?
One space jump.
One space jump, and then after black extends, we won't play here, but we will play hane. And then we aim at getting that Atari. That's a nice idea. Black can try to resist with this move, and then we probably need to connect. We have a lot of cutting points, but also we manage to get power against that black's framework, so it's not bad for white. And of course, like you know, here we are talking about this position with this particular stone, and if that stone is non-existent, or that stone is in a bit different place, then maybe it would be better for white to, I don't know, to connect on the outside, or maybe connect with a different move. But here it's alright, like go like this, and then that stone cries. So I want one more idea what to do in this shape. Attach this stone. If there is a position where the opponent might have liberty problems, like this position where the opponent might get squeezed and suffer a lot, then always a good idea is to throw a grenade into a stone which is nearby, and then the opponent needs to be very careful because that might explode in a way which will harm that black's shape, that shape of black. So for example, if black plays, I don't know, here and that is not careful at all, tries to cut white now, then white plays, haha, double Atari, and black is in a big trouble. If now black thinks, alright, I will not play this because it's too bad, I will just connect, then again, the squeeze already works, and this is something black really doesn't want to accept. So black needs to be careful, black needs to probably answer with the most peaceful move like this. How would we continue?
The squeeze looks good now.
And now it doesn't really work, because now we don't know which way to run black. So we need one more stone before we start a squeeze.
Okay, I wanted to just play the Atari and then go back to making the double tiger's mouth.
Alright, so like this, but this is not a squeeze. If we will not manage to force black to take and connect, it's not that interesting. So we want something more. Where can we play? Honey here. Very, very interesting idea. And again, if black is not careful enough, then maybe now tap, Atari again, Atari, Atari. Right? Now the squeeze will be there. Atari. Black can try to run. But anyway, we managed to squeeze. This is a good result for white. If we manage to squeeze, we are happy. Nice idea, Hanne. Another move which works similarly would be this one. Again, if black plays that, then we can squeeze. Atari, Atari, squeeze. So probably to this move, black needs to respond with, I don't know, here or maybe here. And then we can put a bit more pressure on black's two stones. This is Joseki, like this is an even result. Alright, I think we won't go much more into what happens in this complicated variation. Maybe one final remark. If your opponent played this move, then that variation is kind of a one-way street. Your opponent really doesn't want to play Atari from that side because this will be too bad for black. So maybe you can attach now, because now it doesn't look so obvious. And your opponent might not be that careful. And then you play this, and suddenly you can squeeze. So this is a nice idea. Okay, so we covered all most important variations, and then...
May I ask something?
Yes.
In the previous variation,
All right.
is it okay for white to can play a kema, a long knight?
Here?
Yeah.
Yes. This is also a very good idea. Instead of playing an attachment, which we can lose something on, we can play such a move, and black. Yeah, if black plays like this, then that one will work very well. So black will probably want to fix the shape, and the only way black can fix the shape is this one. Otherwise, like any move like this is only asking for trouble. So let's say black plays here, and then white can maybe slide. One of you suggested this as the very first move, and it's of course also a good move. A knight's move on the third line, approaching a fourth line stone, is a good move. Probably to this move, black would answer from the other side with the pincer. I think we could expect this. And here we kind of forced black to play like this, a bit closer, a bit shorter move. Alright, there is an exchange, but this exchange doesn't change much. I don't know who it is good for. So yeah, so we can play like this, and then we do with the stone whatever we want. Sorry?
Why not the iron pillar? For the other white move.
This one?
Yes.
Why not this iron pillar? In general, iron pillar is not often used. If you want to save that area, probably this move is something you will see more often in professional games because the shape is more flexible and this looks like two stones next to each other. But also, like, all right, it's not bad. I think possible. You care about that area. What white will do now, most probably, is slide into the corner, and then I don't know, play like this, like that. Yeah. Also possible variation.
Would this exchange make the attachment to corner better?
Sorry? Does this exchange make this attachment better?
Yes.
I am not sure, maybe. How do you want to continue?
I'm not sure. I have a feeling that in
Yeah.
classical books there are like this kind of.
If you continue like this, then probably it won't matter. Now this doesn't matter. If you continue like this, then it might matter. Let's say black goes the same path which we discussed before, then it's a nice exchange. Yeah, interesting. So maybe now the attachment is better. Still, I think what we would see in a professional game is rather this slide.
I mean, the iron pillar seems bad because if black had a stone at the third line and white approached, then black would do a one-space jump.
Yes. This is a nice argument. We wouldn't really play here. So yeah, instead of the iron pillar, maybe rather a jump or here if we want to play from this side. And we have one more move to cover. One of you suggested this one. And then what is black's correct answer?
One from the top.
Okay, so black can bump. Then white would extend. Rather not extend to the corner because it will be really small life, really small. So this is only for very, very special situations, overall situations. So you go out, black goes here and white builds a group. Black maybe plays from here and white adds a stone or play like this. Yes, this is a very simple scenario.
Okay.
And yes?
Black won't play like this
Black will not play like this?
in this board.
Which move?
The very first bump.
The very first bump. Yeah. And in fact, not only on this board. In fact, there exists a better answer to this move. And
This is the elephant move.
yes. And actually, not only when black has some support, also without much support, black can play this move, and white is a little bit uncomfortable. White can go out, and white can think, wow, I am going out, and I also have the corner. But the problem is that it's quite difficult to make life in that corner. Maybe white can, if white really wants, white can play this move and make life, but then white will be forced to play like this, so black can even cut off white's stone. White cannot really both connect and be locally alive. So the elephant's jump is something to remember. This is a very good move.
How about in the variation where black bumps, white nobbies, and black blocks in the corners? Wouldn't white make the clamp?
Yes, this is an exchange which is useful to make. You can do it now, you can make it after a few moves. To the clamp, black should respond with the solid connection. If you try to capture the stone of white, it's asking for troubles. After that, white has a lot of moves which will annoy you really much. I don't know, like for example this move. Let's say you play there, what can white do? Maybe here not that much space, but white might even try to make life on the second line. Maybe push once more, maybe white has enough space for making life. Maybe better to start with this attachment. and then there will be problem in black's shape. So yeah, so for the clamp, to the clamp we should answer with, wow, it's spinning. We should answer with a connection. Alright, so I think we covered most of the most important variations with this Shimari. And how about the 3-3 invasion?
You make a ko out of it.
Yeah, or maybe even you can live if you really want. Let's say you play like this. And now you connect. Like you can try to make a call with this move, but you might also connect. Will black try to kill this group? I don't think so, because you will get out with the clamp probably. But black can just add one more move on the outside, and you live there with only 6 points, and you are blocked on both sides. So it's a similar scenario which we talked about when we discussed this position. Also, white lives, but white is blocked from both sides, and black is strong on the outside. So even if you can live without a call, it's not really worth it. One more thing which we should cover when we talk about 4-4 is the far Shimari, far corner enclosure. Here things work a bit differently. Also, it's possible that white approaches like this. Also, it's possible that white approaches like that. But for example, now the Sun-Sun invasion is already a little bit more interesting, because the helping stone of black is further. And white surely can make life. It's actually quite similar to the variation we talked about, but in this position there is an additional exchange, white's cutting stone and black's empty triangle. So like this it's already acceptable for white, but also not something which you would play early in the game. I think that the old theory was a little bit like to the large knight's move corner enclosure, you can just invade, but it's not really worth it. Black also doesn't really have to capture the stone now. Black can play more active moves. So there is that possibility, but still a bit small life. And another thing which works differently is this attachment, because now black cannot push you to the second line. So against this large knight's move Shimari, it's actually a valid move to attach. And then if black tries to push you towards the second line, then actually you can destroy black's shape. So black would better just connect and let you live in the corner. Probably like this, and then maybe other move. Yeah. So this is also a Joseki, yes?
What happens if when white goes into the corner, right, black blocks the other way and gets like a double hane
here?
variation?
So against this move,
yes,
the normal proper answer is this one.
Right.
You get strength on the outside, white lives in the corner. But sometimes it might be that actually white has stones, maybe here and maybe there, and you think like, alright, getting that outside doesn't mean much to me, like it is not very interesting. Actually that cutting stone in the variation will be quite annoying, and perhaps after white makes life I will just play a move and capture it, but then still I got an influence which is not very useful. In such situations it might be better if you play from the other side. White plays here, and then you play a double hane. So this is a normal Joseki. Just black has a stone which is not very efficient, right? It is close to this wall. Black doesn't really want to have a stone here. But maybe if the other variation is really not interesting for black, then black might choose this. Also, perhaps black would choose it if white also has a stone on this side, and then not only black's stone might be inefficient, but also white's stone might be inefficient. then actually it's like bad for me, but also bad for you. So we can accept it. All right. This and then.
No, the other side. The other side.
So here also, because the stone is further, is now possible to think of such a block. Even though black stone is a bit too close, it's not as inefficient as it used to be if it was closer, right? So now it is also possible to consider that variation. So I will just say a few words, because we discussed it already that to such a corner enclosure we would attach, but a few things to mention. To that corner enclosure we shouldn't attach here, because then black stone will be in a very efficient place. So this black would be happy about. It's like we have this and then white made that exchange. Not good. To such a corner enclosure, the attachment which is often used is this one, and the most common black's answer is protect the corner. White continues with this move, and then where should black play?
Atari, the one stone.
Atari, that one stone. Any other options?
Atari, the other one.
Atari the other way. Interesting.
Descend.
Just descend, also a possibility. How about the connection?
It's okay.
It's okay? Alright. So this is the most common move. This is the second most common move. If you want to cut, then probably you wanted to play here in the first place. This will lead to a complicated variation, but probably in this order it might be a bit worse for you. Because now if you connect, white is not forced to play this exchange. White might also play from the other side and just ignore the two stones. So yeah, this and this. And I just want to mention this connection. This connection is a little bit inefficient, but what is white's proper answer?
Connecting.
Yes, very, very important, this shape. You can tenuki. If your opponent just pulls back after your attachments, then you didn't really invest much. You just play the move, your opponent answered with the move. You don't need to be attached emotionally to these stones, you can play elsewhere. Or if you want to continue, then you should continue in a light manner. If you connect, then actually you are getting a quite heavy shape, and your opponent can attack you very efficiently. It is just like if he had a stone, black had a stone, you approach, extended, black answered, and then you make this exchange, which is certainly a bad exchange, it doesn't help white stones, and then you play tenuki so that black has time to attack you. This is not good for white. So remember that such stones you should treat lightly, and in general, if you attached and your opponent pulled back, then you should treat your stones lightly. Because black doesn't want to give white that possibility. That's why black forces white to connect the stones, forces white to be a bit more heavy, and then white already needs to think what to do with these stones, and probably many of you saw common variations, like white would push a few times against black and then add a move. Alright, and this is also a joseki. Of course there are more josekis with a 3-4 stone, but I think we are already a bit like still the lightning tournament to play today, so thank you all for listening.